私のセミナー、Recovering from Grief、悲しみからの回復ということで、始めさせていただきたいんですけれども、自己紹介はちょっと後で、させていただきますけれども、その前に一言、Please let us pray first. Heavenly Father, thank you for this day. You are the God and you are the control of everything, and you are the loved us so much, and you gave us your only Son, Jesus Christ, who died on the cross, rose again for our sins. And then you gathering us today and think about especially the death today. So please guide us and teach us. And also please fill me to your Holy Spirit. 天の父様、今日のこの時ありがとうございます。主が私たちを愛してくださり、イエス様を私たちの罪のために与えてくださり、イエス様を信じる信仰によって罪を許されて、神様の子供としていただき、家に命を与えていることを感謝します。今からこの悲しみからの回復と題してセミナーを持たせていただきますけど、主が共に導いてくださいます。In Jesus' name we pray. Everybody say Amen. ありがとうございます。私の名前は大久保満と申します。My name is Mitsuru Okubo, but people call me Mick, M-I-C-K. So usually I tell the people I'm a Mickey Mouse Mick or a Mick Jagger Mick, which way is easy to remember. Yes,こちらに来て、私自身もう20年近くなります。最初はシカゴに、いまして、もともと私シカゴ生まれなんですね。で、私の父が牧師で、そのシカゴにあるトリニティ、ディビニティスクールというところに行って勉強してた時私が生まれて、でその後卒業した時に日本に帰ってきた。I was born in the Chicago, Highland Park, Illinois, because my father studied the Trinity Divinity School. And after that he graduated, my family went back to Japan, and so I grew up in Japan most of the time. But I'm 42 years old, and then so now right now is mostly half of my life is almost like in Japan, US and Japan. So it's perfect for bilingual speaking, but it's fine. But I still learning English, so sometimes my pronunciation or enunciation is not clear, and then kind of original plan is I went to a seminary. I graduated from Tokyo Christian University in Chiba. People say the Tokyo, but Chiba. And so after graduate Tokyo Christian University, I came to US because I want to go to a seminary, same seminary for to Trinity Divinity School. But my TOEFL score is so low, so I couldn't get it. So and I went to I went to English school, language school 2 years, and then but my TOEFL score is a little bit not enough for Trinity. And then my family and my friend asked, oh, there's a Northern Baptist Seminary. It's like based on the American Baptist Seminary. So I went to an open house, and then I begged the kind of deans, please, let me in. Because after I couldn't get it, I need to go back to Japan. So so I and then God answered my question, prayer, and then I get into Northern. And then God has a plan. Always God has a plan, because I found a girl over there. So I married my wife. Yes. Yeah. And also I married, she's American, Caucasian American, And then kind of, original plan is I tried, I would go back to Japan, after the graduate seminary, but I stuck because of my, just joking. And then but I wanna be a pastor, after I graduate, but that time I couldn't find any churches, especially the Japanese language church. And then that time my wife worked in the Northern Seminary. That's where we graduated from. So she recommended, okay, why don't you try to chaplaincy, chaplain residency? Do you know what's the chaplain is? Usually chaplain is usually like a military chaplain, going to a war, they're taking care of spiritual care. Basically, the chaplain is a spiritual care many times. And then I worked at hospital, and then I did like 1 year the residency program, and then after that I worked a couple years for at the hospital. Andクリスチャンとして日本語は全然ない。英語は全然大丈夫。
そうやってください。
いや大丈夫です。
はいはい。一応聞いてます。
聞いてる。そうです。わからなかったら日本語で言う。
はい、大丈夫です。
そうです。And then first I did the residency. It's very how do you say, the hard, very dangerous area. I work at south side of Chicago. South of Chicago is usually like a very gang. There's a gun shooting. So every day, like an emergency room, there's like a gunshot wound, and then sometimes also like a car accident patients. So it's not easy because most of the patient is very critical, sometimes too young, maybe 17 or 13, sometimes 13. Girl, and then she didn't have any idea who shot. Some guy, like a randomly shot, and then she got shot, and they saw her heart is like a stop. So ER doctor is cutting her chest, and then take out her heart, and then pumping by like a manual. Those kind of situations is very hard, but. And then, so that's my experience. Very, very kind of how to kind of communicate. So families very, very upset, and then why my daughter is doing this? Where's God or something? So that's those kind of experience makes me feel, wow, it's very, since then I was in a Christian home and very protected. But outside of a church, and especially that's the environment, I was very shocked. But I learned a couple of things through the chaplaincy. That's why I want to share you today. And then first of all, I learned first God is in control, everything. It's Revelations 22:13 says, I am the Alpha and the Omega, the first and the last, the beginning and the end. I feel that even that those kind of a situation, God's in there, it's God's love there. Maybe seems like kind of sometimes hard and the family is very upset, but I felt God in the control, was in the control. Because especially the working through me, God gave me the peace, and there's a hope. There's a hope through that, because some patients, it's believers, or some patients, even not believers, but through my presence, maybe comfort them. Little bit, it's just, but it's, so I every time I thank God for God's walking through those hard situations. And in my experience, like people who have faith in God are able to dealing with grief better. It's without faith and with faith, it's totally different approach. Because as a chaplain, I'm a Christian chaplain, so I go in the room, and then people usually don't know what chaplain is, who chaplain, what kind of role that chaplains provide. But usually I introduce to myself, I'm a chaplain, I can come with you, I can support you, anything you want, please let me know, anything, especially for water or any, I cannot provide medical request, but even they ask me, but I ask the nurse to, this patient needs water or something. But so for you, kind of ask, maybe one thing you need. You guys maybe some family or some friends, lost of someone. You need maybe assess, who that person is, kind of the person has a faith or not, because those people is totally different approach, because person who has a faith, is maybe easy to maybe we can talk about God, but without, a person who doesn't have a faith, is little bit different, maybe just maybe be there and then listen to what they think, what people are saying. So yeah, and then I learned another things. People who are spiritually more mature seems to be able to rest more effectively because they are aided by the convinced that God is with them. They do not feel that they have to face the presence and their future alone. It's very important we share the gospel or God, God, God exists. It's very important because God created us. So it's kind of in the hospital we can evangelize. We can share the gospel. That's not usually most hospital policy don't share the faith, don't evangelize or, because that's not only the Christian chaplain, there's a Jewish chaplain or I haven't seen the Buddhist chaplain, but there's another religion. So that's why, but it's we through our behaviors or maybe kind of presence, sometimes people open the heart, or what's you are different or something, and why you so kind to me, it's sometimes. So it's very important for maybe sharing the gospel. It's always time. It's in the Bible says Ecclesiastes, I can't pronounce. 伝道者の書にもね、すべての時があるという。Everything is time. So it's you kind of every time prepare for sharing the gospel and also for I'm a Japanese, so I'm researching for how many people Japanese people think about death. And 40% Japanese people don't know where we're going after the death. Even we have more majority of Buddhist and the Shinto, and there's something kind of circulation for life. Kind of this life is you are good people. Next life is maybe better, more like a rich people or that. Even those kind of teaching, but people don't know where we're going after the death. So that's why very important to every time you have to know where we are going after the death. So that's the kind of chaplaincy, or maybe you gonna be the person who are lost of people. So that's the very important. Even in Japan, it's very hard to maybe share the gospel, but we can tell the God, maybe after the death, this is the Bible teaching or something. If you the time, okay, the person's open the heart or something. also, most Japanese people think, people say, leave me alone. Please be myself. Most people, maybe if I ask the person, do you need anything or do you something? Most people say, no, I'm okay. Just leave me alone. But reality is Japanese is also a human being. People is a people. That people wanna be somebody take care or maybe attention to me. In my religion, it's very hard to how gonna approach. I cannot say what should I do, but I think mostly the key is a listen to the person's anxiety. It's very key for even though I'm a chaplain. Don't say not many words. Yeah, just listen, be there, present. It's very important. Second, it's there's a stage of grieving. People. But most people, I have see the patients or persons. After the kind of, I visit a couple of times the persons, and then sometimes they feel emerges a slightly higher level of maturity about the death. It's very strong kind of person, and also becomes a deeper person. Because that person has already experienced a grief, then kind of they know about how hard is grieving. And also the person become a stronger, like a spiritual person, more spirit. Because learn to how to use our spiritual muscles, kind of stretching the muscles, how gonna pray or those. And also be able to help others. So we provide pastoral care to the person also provide other people too. That's more similar to evangelism too. Marty, you're teaching kind of how to evangelize people. That's an education too. Same as kind of pastoral care. Also, if you go the persons, provide, your pastoral care, that person also provide other people. It looks like a kind of more enlarged, kind of pastoral cares. That's also the church. Church looks like. People take care of each other. So because Romans 12:15 said, "Rejoice with those who rejoice. Mourn with those who will mourn." This passage, if you don't experience what's the mourning looks like or rejoice looks like, how gonna provide that person to with rejoice with those who rejoice or mourn with those who mourn. So that's a very important, kind of that's a case. And usually kind of the people, the patient, there's a 10 stage of a shocking. First stage, usually stage of shock, shock the first. And especially kind of sudden death, like a gun shooting or a car accident, people usually shock. And then kind of next stage, expressing emotion. It's kind of a more, sometimes express emotion, but usually women express the emotion. Men is not much they express because society teaching men don't cry, but reality is men should cry too because emotions is essential to a person to try to replace it is to make one less than a person. It's kind of men also have emotions, right? That's something men, have a cry or rejoice, angry or something. Yeah, so that's the next stage. And then third stage is the feeling depressed or like a loneliness. That's the kind of Japanese people feels too. And the fourth stage is experiencing physical symptoms of depression, and then also physical. Sometimes people, wives, like a kind of have a headache, or sometimes some other like a kind of if kind of the husband or loved one died in the cancer or something, that person also feels, oh, I'm not feeling well or something. That's a kind of stage. And then also stage of becoming a panicky. Well, what should I do? What should I do? Kind of those kind of connect to emotion to like the panicking. What should I do? Where nothing. Kind of that's. And also they feel the sense of guilt. Oh, I should do this one. I should do taking. That's the stage of yeah. But there's two guilts. Like a normal guilt is a guilt for something you have said or done or thought wrong by the standards of our society. Sometimes, oh, I shouldn't do that or something. That's a guilt. So normal guilt. But a neurotic guilt is a feeling guilt all out of a proportion to our own real environment in this particular problem. So it's kind of your mind is kind of a guilt or mind. Yeah. That's But we must not be afraid or embarrassed to talk about our feelings of guilt with those who have been trained to help us when the going set rough. Kind of we can ask, okay, it's okay. You can tell, even people blaming themselves, you should, oh, no, you shouldn't do blame. No, you have to do, yes, okay, yeah, that's the kind of accept, okay. Because the people is kind of feel guilty, now, means kind of blaming themselves, and then we shouldn't stop that one. That's the one process for grieving. So grieving process. So that's why kind of we like accept, just listen. You shouldn't say your opinion or your like you shouldn't do that. Just say, oh yeah, I'm sorry. I'm sorry you're feeling that way. Like those kind of. And then kind of sometimes some people say the anger and then resentment, very angry. For example, some like a 19 years daughters killed by gunshot. The family, that's an African American family, and there's a waiting room. There's 20 the families staying there. And the mother is very angry, and then sometimes her brother is punching the wall, and then so we call the security, Those kind of anger is very normal. People is very resentment. And then, but that time maybe you have to, at the hospital situation, we have to security. But usually kind of individually, maybe, the anger, maybe, I think sometimes in kind of, you let them calm down, kind of maybe let's go outside, like maybe let's refresh the air or something. And then sometimes some people is refusing returning. Sometimes people grieving, and then I don't want to go back to work, or I don't want to do anything, just be there, refusing. Sometimes returning is very difficult to some people, because they don't want to accept the reality. My husband's past, or it's sometimes grief. So it's very, as a pastoral care provider, is what should we do? It's very be there and then but I don't let. It's very hard to, kind of difficult to, returning, but you just pray, like we have to pray for that person and wait that time is come. And then kind of sometimes some people, the hope is slowly come. Gradually hope comes through it for those kind of process. And then sometimes, stage of struggling with to affirm the reality. Because so this one is very important, struggling to affirm the reality. It's not right that people should try to carry on grief work alone. That's why Japanese people said, you leave me alone. But it's not good, not healthy. You have to, somebody involved in that situation, grieving process. Mourn with those who are mourn. That's a more Christian way to provide pastoral care. Then those are kind of stage. And then kind of the next one, then kind of how to kind of work with others in their grieving. What should we do for those persons? Maybe I said a couple things during the before, but mine is my advice to you is my experience through my experience. First of all, do not be afraid. Go to that person, grieving person. Do not afraid, because God is with you. God always working. God is always control. So every time, even the hard situation, people die, kind of so suddenly or any time, I pray first. God, please, be with me, and so that's a very important first step. The next one, make boundary in yourself. You are not God, so you cannot carry the other person's grief. Kind of of course, a human being, maybe sympathy or empathy go there, I'm sorry, I'm lost. But you need to make a boundary in your side. This is his or her grieving. It's not my grieving. That's very important, because usually some people goes in and very deep and then going home or still kind of grieving for that person. Because, for example, what I did before I go into the patient's room, of course I pray and go in and I listen to their kind of their story, and then go out that room. I leave my feeling to them, leave there, and I switch my mind, because I have a life too. I have a wife. I have two sons, and I can carry that grieving with me to the life. It's very important, because most people doing carrying the other people, especially kind of your close friends, your family. But you have to make a boundary yourself. And then also a bit, yes.
Yeah, for the mourn with people who mourn and not carrying the grief, how do you?
I usually that's you have to need self-care too. Your own self-care. Sometimes I carry in for a very very hard situation, and I cry with them, and then sometimes I very hard. Sometimes I debrief to other chaplains or your co-workers, or who need your mentors or something, sharing our feeling. It's very confidentiality, of course, confidentiality, because some information is very confidential, So, but person who you're trusting, you kind of need to be debrief, what you do, And also sometimes I like tropical fish, that hospital usually tropical fish kind of fish tank. I sit down for at least 30 minutes, think nothing, just looking, and then sometimes pray, or because debriefing yourself too. Sometimes rewind what you say, what happened to there, more like organize your mind. 30 minutes sitting there, and then maybe deep breath, and then go to next patient. So sometimes I did. That's a self-care too. And maybe common sense of a pastor too. Some pastors are kind of overwhelmed, burn out because they don't do self-care. It's very important. That's why pastor or chaplain have some hobbies or anything, switch your mind, because we cannot carry the other person's breathing. God only take care. Jesus is carrying our burden, with them. So Jesus only can, handle those things. So that's why we just leave there, and then invite. And then third point is you need to be there, be present. Just be present. Don't need a lot of words. Sometimes people think, oh, what should I say? What kind of comfort word you are saying? We don't need those words. Just be present. Sit next to the person, and then maybe hold a hand, or sometimes maybe read the Bible. Sometimes they ask, And then sometimes, but one thing I always ask the family, for this is family, kind of a person who lost. I ask them to, what's the person's story? What's your memory about this person? So usually family sharing your story. Oh yeah, this is funny. Usually kind of it's very hard moment. Even the but not much the angry person or something, because they need to calm down. Usually maybe I usually ask the person's memory of that person. Yeah, that's a very important thing. Only one I ask for them, and then also sometimes don't ask kind of how do you feel or something, or what you feeling or something. It's necessary those kind of questions. So because they're breathing, it's kind of sad or something. But be with them, presence is the number one comforting the person. Yeah, be them, be with them is very. And then fifth thing is it's not every time you pray for the person if your person requests or something. Prayer is very comforting the person also. But that's a big difference, because people who doesn't have a faith doesn't need a prayers. But even sometimes I ask, may I pray? One time I saw a Buddhist patient. And I asked her, may I pray for her? I pray for you. She said yes. And so, but the important thing, don't pray in Jesus' name. Sometimes I say your name, or maybe because usually prayer, Christian prayers, in Jesus' name or your name or Jesus' name. It's kind of maybe typical like a Christian prayer, but. We don't know who is, if you don't know the person's faith, you just say your name or something. Yeah, it's more urgent.
So question is, in a hospital, is that prohibited to pray under the name of Jesus Christ?
Sometimes, yeah, because Jewish people don't pray in Jesus' name. So that's.
I was just going to wonder if the hospital prohibits you to pray.
Yeah, it's not hospital. That's a kind of chaplaincy, like an organization recommend us. Yeah. For an individual, maybe I think you can pray in Christ's name, especially kind of a church family. You definitely pray in Christ. Yeah. But sometimes, pastoral care, sometimes the pastors or missionary go to a non-Christian's home, But sometimes it's okay. But sometimes we visit in the hospital. That's the situation maybe will be different. Yeah, that's the So do not afraid, and then make boundaries, be present, and ask the person, keep a memory about that deceased persons, and then pray. That's the kind of I advise you for more provide pastoral care. That's my lectures. so now is the Q&A. You have any questions or anything you can ask me, so I can.
I think it's very helpful. And myself being as a pastor, I get some opportunity to visit the hospital or talk to somebody, and sometimes, especially I thought it's you make a boundary, and I think sometimes this is very important. You cannot carry on, somebody's grief all the time even after you go home.
That's a very, my wife's working a seminary, and then we have like a CP, clinical pastoral education, like a requirement. But most students, I don't want to take that one, because even the, people want to go to pastors, or even the pastor are afraid to go into those kind of clinical pastoral education. Because lots of people are afraid, because maybe kind of like they try to carry on their grieving with them. That's too much for them. But making a boundary is very important, because I have been seeing maybe 5 or a couple hundred people, every patient, I can carry all kind of pain in here. So that's why you can be making self-care is very important, even the past.
So I understand that you work in a hospital, so this may not be your primary experience, but most of the grief that I'm closer to is not about a loss through death, but about a loss through like a family member or friend, losing them to addiction, losing them, like they're still alive, but losing a family member through disownment, because they're choosing lifestyles that the rest of the family can no longer support them. Can you speak, or do you have any advice for that kind of grief?
Yeah, it's one, especially drug addictions, and I sometimes family has an issue too. Family dynamics, very complicated, or those. Chaplain, or we cannot solve that issues. It's so. I usually, first of all, listen to their story, listen carefully about their family dynamic, or sometimes we have to assessment, what looks like, what's the picture looks like. And then, as a Christians, I always pray for God's wisdom or anything, So, yeah, it's very tough, because the people still, people is alive, it's living now. There's a life, yeah, it's and then yeah, in a hospital concept, we can handle only the inside the hospital, not outside the hospital. Yeah, so as you say, I don't have much experience those kind of stuff, but commonly maybe pray and then listen to the family, taking care of, and then just wait, for God's working. The patience is very important too, It's not short ministry. It's sometimes a long ministry too, It's same as time. Okay. So yeah, I just say, yeah, pray and then listen to the family and then be present to, yeah, and maybe have a coffee then, that's the most important.
Can you describe how to determine the maturity level of the person?
Oh, the person maturity level. There's no kind of exactly kind of measurement or anything.
Is it
But-
case by case?
Case by case, yeah. It's each person is different, And then, but people is differently growing, It's growing, like a better growing worse, even the spiritual, either up and down or something. But people have an experience, at least experience, doing, especially like a spiritual experience, sometimes encourage the people too, it's, even, different, myself is different than 5 years, and then now is totally different for spiritual, how to take care of the person, so even the patients is really different too, or maybe as a pastor, maybe the members totally changed, but everything's God's work. So, yeah, I'm sorry, not exactly answer your question.
No, that's fine. Maybe my question was bad. And
No,
I
no,
was
no,
just
no.
thinking maybe you picked up on an emotional feeling or something, and that indicated how you would handle it or something.
Yeah, there's no manual, It's that, you have to do this. That's why I said, pray or listen to be present. This may be kind of a general, like a basics one, like maybe my advice, through my experience, Each chapter is a different method too, Yeah.
You said God is in control, but patients are uncontrolled. And when I feel grief, I'm uncontrolled. Okay, I can't do anything. Okay, and another point is, can you share your handout?
Handout, okay.
Okay, if you can share, it's very important for me.
Okay, I'm gonna print out. So, yeah, it's
Because in a church, pastor membership is very common. God is control, but the person's very struggling for facing the grief. Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, our life is a chaos. It's even the God's control, but we can't see God is control. But for as a people, is only see that this much the view, but God sees the kind of this totally huge view. So right now, kind of very hard, very difficult. But in the past, God's control, God's working through those experience. We trust, we believe, God's in control. Even we don't if I cannot believe in God, how gonna that person believe in God. That's important. I have to, we must believe God is control, because actually God is working. Even, our eyes, life is tough, but, honestly, maybe a couple of years later, you find out God's differently working through this process. So we, we are the partial care provider, we always pray and then listen to God. God's voice is very important in the working Bible. It's very important. Our faith is very important. That's why I told you the people who has a faith and the people who doesn't have a faith is totally different approach. But we have, as a Christian, we believe in God. God is always working through us. So we have to believe ourselves first. Then, we provide a pastoral care. That's a very important.
How do you handle those pet loss? Person who has a loving pet and
A pet?
Yeah, pet loss. Do you tell them that your dogs are in heaven?
No. Pet also God's creation, and I believe God also loves the pet, and then lost is lost. Doesn't matter that the people or the animals, they still grieving. And the same thing, kind of be present. I'm sorry or lost, same thing. But if people ask you that is our pet, my pet is going to heaven or anything, those kind of questions.
They ask you.
And then I said, God already knows. I don't know, because in the Bible doesn't say it, but God's creation, So God only knows that I don't know. But, you don't have to, answer all questions. If you don't know, you say, honestly, I don't know. Yeah. Maybe kind of, yeah. Even the people saying, kind of, that my father, believers, go to heaven or something, he's a Buddhist, he was a Buddhist. Is he go to heaven or something? I usually say, I don't know. Yeah.
Grief is common, okay?
Yeah.
But if grief continues, maybe depressions.
Yeah, that's the stage of depression. Yeah, that's why. But sometimes people has to return to a reality. But sometimes some people takes a couple years. Usually, normally it's a year to the grieving process. People, usually kind of 1 year's processing grieving and then accept the reality, and then maybe people are moving on to next stage.
All right, thank
So
you so much.